And I think we're near the end, but I wanted to suggest one thought if the group objects, please. But we could draft a resolution about shipping, many of the ideas that are coming out here today, and then have it introduced by the appropriate committees. And they could then hold a hearing at some point in either the Senate or the House to review some of these issues. We'll put that in our recommendations if people don't have a problem with that. That's not legislation, but it's to get the people in Congress, and particularly the staff, to become more aware of all of these ideas. Everyone has been very generous with their time today, and this is actually a remarkable number of people to stay this long until this late. I think the most articulate person who has spoken all day is neither myself or Dito or Michael, but Doris Ho. And therefore, we've asked Doris to give a few inspiring concluding remarks.
Thank you so much for those really amazing words. But more than anything, I want to thank you, the Joint Chamber. Really, this is really great, because I think what we heard today, I'd like to divide into two streams of thought. And I think all of you have done a great job doing the minutes, but two trains of thought. The first one is really the short-term work that we have identified. Some of the things that I listened to Chris Gonzalez. Many of us are either defending our business, either fighting against wrong things, or fixing things that were needed because of something that wasn't done well. I mean, in other places you wouldn't have to do an intermodal connect to here to this. And it's basically because there was an overall lack of planning. So that's one of the things that everyone's doing. The other one is things that are urgent. This is Davao, this is Cebu. These are the squatters. I mean, I'd like to separate those from sort of the long-term, big, audacious initiative. Yeah. So under the long-term, audacious initiative, I think one of the problems is that our industry is so invisible. People don't know it. It's very difficult to understand. It could be our fault. Mind you, this is not a Philippine problem. It's global. No one knows that a ship is important. They think it's a view in the ocean. They think it's part of a painting, but they don't know that it really serves a very important service to humanity. So I think one is that we really need to give knowledge, either to importers, to legislators. How many of you have been to Congress and they're arguing with you that what they call the shippers? It's already, you can't even explain anymore. You're already using wrong terminology. And I think what is lacking in our country is trust. Trust from lack of knowledge, trust from an overall vision. And I think that's where we really need to be clear. I like all the work that, I know you're doing so much in Congress, but when it's little pieces on an industry that no one gets, it's even harder to understand. And I think it falls on us to think of a very big idea. And I think those two ideas really fall on, that would address, those two big ideas would address some of the problems we have on lack of investor confidence, because regulatory frameworks are so strange, you know, even the lack of maybe this idea of splitting PPA. We're all looking at the little pieces of the elephant without painting the elephant. And I think we all have to understand what is that big, amazing initiative. So it's not really the first one I have is the big initiative, and I hope that the Joint Chamber can really push for strategic planning, a strategic idea on, let's say, 5 things that this country will really be competitive, and then we have a meticulous implementation. McKinsey has said they would help us even in the beginning for free. I went with McKinsey to Malaysia, and what Malaysia did is they appointed, the Prime Minister appointed a man named Idris. He was the ex-chairman of Shell. The Prime Minister made him sit in a room with all the cabinet members and top businesses. They took the top 20 contributors to GDP. They put a plan and they had metrics. And every month they measure it. And that's where I learned about the light bulb #1 and all that. So I've been trying to push something like that here. I think maybe the Joint Chamber should say, McKinsey is really willing to help. And maybe we can at least push for 5 things. It could be coconut, it could be, specific, right? That what is it that we want to be in this whole region? The second one is more around maritime. And if I may take from where Dito left into what this maritime blue Philippines looks like. And it might have to, I didn't add logistics, Michael. We might have to add that as well. But when people look at us, they think of shipping and the logistics and the manning. But countries like Singapore are doing everything to be the maritime center in the world. And I just copied them in this chart. What we're thinking of Blue Philippines is really making everyone see that this industry is vital for the country. And for now, it includes coastal shipping, international shipping, ship management services, manning services. Believe it or not, all of you know Filipinos are 30% of the world's labor force. Other services, including our R&D, including what you said, digitalization. Why can't we be the forerunners of these? Singapore government will support anything that is maritime. The government will give money if you do R&D and digitalization of the maritime industry. That's how focused they are on that big, hairy idea. Training and education, we certainly have a lot of training, a lot of schools. There are 90 maritime colleges. And just to show you how Singapore does it, Singapore steel plates is the cheapest in the world, and they don't even make it. And that's because the government believes so much in it that they stock it so that all the ships that pass by are able to do their ship repair there competitively. That's how focused they are. And if I add the word logistics, it brings us back to what I started on trade. In logistics, you're either on the way, like Singapore, when you stand on a hill in Singapore and you see all those ships, you know that everyone's passing by. Or you're a great manufacturing hub, Kaohsiung, Ningpo, Shenzhen. These are logistics hubs because they are manufacturing hubs. But mind you, it requires thinking. Because Singapore became a great logistics hub from where their location is. Everyone has to pass by Singapore. Why didn't Indonesia do it on the other side? Because they didn't think it. They didn't have the determination. And why did Malaysia only start doing it 20 years later? Because they said, aha, let's copycat. And that's why Iskandar and all the Johors come. So it boils down to that. One is we have to push as an initiative the strategic plan. But the other one as an idea, what if we push forth a legislation around Blue Philippines and say we want to be a maritime center, and each of these, mind you, has a bill. That's RA, whatever is missing. We might have to do PPA goes in. Everything goes into a big picture rather than little pieces, because then it doesn't mean anything. International shipping, believe it or not, we don't have a registry. We can't even decide whether we should be a flag of convenience or should we be national flag. What is our greater opportunity? Ship management services. We are not as good as Singapore. Why? Because every single guy who runs off in an emergency has to then get a visa, or he has to go through another hub port. We don't have enough direct flights out. Mining services, we're BPO. If you look at the BPO, the top of the element of BPO, the highest pyramid, is human resource services, right? Other services, how do we now get ourselves there to be the one? Whenever I hire, and I'm sure you do too, when I hire any of my technical people, I have to hire Filipinos back from Singapore. So why are they, and they all want to come home. And training education is so tough. So our friend, we add the logistics part. So anyway, I thought maybe I'd like to propose, why don't we go after a big hairy cluster? This is not a physical cluster, it's a service cluster. And maybe we can get used to the idea of going around a concept where everybody works together towards making our country a truly great maritime center. with the greatest people and the greatest services. Thank you.